Minister joins us now. Dr. Nigel Clarke, afternoon. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Good afternoon, Dionne. Thank you for having me.
All right, let me start out with that issue, the issue of Czech doing the design and then going on to do the construction. And we've also heard, we had an item in our newscast just now, the master builders also disagreeing with that, and as well as other observers who have been watching the process. It sounds as if what we're saying is whoever does a design must automatically go on to do the construction. If that is the case, why would the design and the construction then not have been part of a package which could have been put to tender perhaps?
Okay, step back a bit. What has been missing so far from the public discourse is the context in which all of this has unfolded. Dionne, is unfolded in the context of Jamaica having a series of arrangements, government-to-government arrangements between the government of Jamaica and the government of China for construction projects in Jamaica, which have been packaged arrangements where design and implementation and financing have all been wrapped into one. All of those projects have been, because they've been government-to-government, outside of the normal procurement window. We went down the wicket with the same modality for the Montego Bay bypass, a process that began in 2017. Geotechnical alignment would have been done, feasibility would have been done, bill of quantities, preliminary estimate of costs, etc., by China Harbour, on the expectation that this would be like the previous arrangement, government to government, where we'd be seeking financing from the China Exim Bank, and on a government-to-government basis, they would be implementing. That was a fully good faith expectation on both parts. Very, very late into the process, the Ministry of Finance jumped in and said, look, we don't need to borrow from China Exim Bank in order to get this done, which is a good thing. That is good news. We have been dependent on their financing in the past, particularly because we couldn't borrow from other people at certain times in the past. Now, having gone all the way with the full expectation that this will unfold in the same way that the South Coast unfolded and other major construction projects, that we were at that point in time, 3 or 4 years into a process, we were left with 4 choices essentially. And it's those 4 choices that we have to look at and not construct a context that does not exist or did not exist. And those 4 choices, Dionne, were to, 1, despite the fact that we recognize that we did not need to borrow at that point, we could have decided to forge ahead as was originally intended in 2017 and had a package deal, design, implement, financing, all in one, government to government to China. The second thing
hold on with the second one, Dr. Clarke. Let me just take the break, make some money of our own here on Beyond the Headlines, and come back to you in a moment. Finance Minister Nigel Clarke talking to us about the Czech contract with the Montego Bay Bypass Road soon come. All right, so we're talking with the Minister of Finance, Dr. Nigel Clarke. He is responding to concerns that have been raised inside and outside the Parliament about the arrangements for the Montego Bay Perimeter Road project, which is the contract for which is being executed or being given to Czech China Harbour. So just before the break, the Finance Minister was saying there is a wider context. He was explaining that initially the plan was to take a loan to do the project. When it was determined that the project could be done without a loan, then some recalibration was necessary. Just to make the point before you continue, that Dr. Clarke, that some of that information, in fact, has been in the public domain, and certainly we were sharing some of that information that the Prime Minister was speaking about in the House and giving that kind of background. But back to the 4 options that you said we were faced with. You said one was to go ahead, borrow anyway with the package that had been used for previous projects.
Yeah, so Dionne, not just a loan that was being contemplated. This was a government-to-government arrangement where the loan is tied, right, with expectation that the contracting agency will be China Harbour. All Exim banks around the world, that's how they operate, right? Every Exim bank exists to support the export of the goods and services from that country. So that was the full expectation, and we all proceeded, meaning Jamaica and China along that course with all of the preparatory work done with that assumption that was how it was going to unfold. Very late into the process, Jamaica, indicated that, look, we don't need to borrow the funds under that arrangement. Now, at that point, we had four options. And this is years into the process, a process that would have begun in 2017. We could have continued on as was originally intended to do the package arrangement where we government to government, we borrow from the government of China, and we go ahead with China Harbour as the implementer. We could have, the second option would have been to start over and to go back to doing a new alignment, a new feasibility, etc., which we would have lost, based on how long it has taken us, just using that as at the time it took to get here. I'm not an engineer, but we started in 2017. It's now 2021. We could have lost 3 to 4 years, right? Starting all the way over. Well, the third option would be, I've heard some people mention in the public domain, okay, let's say we were able to go to China Harbour and say, the work that you have done, is there any way that we could procure that work and use it to have an open tender process?
Which is what the finance spokesman was referring to in that clip.
And I'm going to go to that. And the fourth option is the option that we have selected, which is to decouple the financing and to honor the arrangement under the proverb, and the one-time monkey won't wife, right? That you proceed in good faith with a partner, an international partner, and you have every expectation that something is going to unfold in a particular way. They put themselves out at their expense in good faith, and then you change your mind on an aspect of it. What is the good faith thing to do in recognition of the fact that you don't burn bridges in this world? And, as the Jamaican proverb says, and a one-time monkey won't wise, right? Now, there are pros and cons.
Hold on, just before you go on, just before you go on, was the eventual decision made under either pressure from the Chinese or at their request, specific request?
No, not neither of the two, Dionne. We don't need pressure to operate as good international citizens. In the world. We have been engaged for the past maybe 13 or 14 years with the government of China doing a series of construction projects under a particular modality. Jamaica is graduating from those arrangements, and the first step in that graduation is a decoupling of the financing. We would, under various administrations, at least 4 administrations, Bruce Golding, Portia Simpson Miller, Andrew Holness 1, Andrew Holness 2, 4 administrations over 13 or 14 years, we have had an arrangement with the government of China where we borrow from them on one hand and they do the implementation, design, etc. And we are graduating from that, but you graduate in steps. And the first step is a decoupling of the financing. And as we say this, Dionne, let me just inform your listeners that from September of last year, we have been engaged with our multilateral partners to help us for the next phase to graduate even further, where design, implementation, financing will all be open to competitive tender. But we don't get there in one step. And I want to remind listeners, okay, of 2 facts in our history. Okay, and this is where you get context. The first is with respect to energy procurement. I wanted to remind your listeners of the path that Jamaica has taken to get to the point where we can procure energy in a open, competitive tender process. Back in the 1990s, in 1994, when Jamaica needed to procure energy, we engaged in sole sourcing with Wärtsilä. The Dr. Bird 1 barge was sole sourced in direct negotiation, $200 million with one provider who wrapped everything in together, financing and a fully wrapped EPC contract, that's equipment procurement construction contract, along with the financing. That's what we had to do then. 10 years later, in 2004, we needed to procure again. We went and we procured Dr. Bird 2, which was a 51 megawatt project at about $80 million, and we graduated. The financing wasn't wrapped, but we had an EPC with Wärtsilä We only negotiated with one provider. They came in and they provided the barge, and we went on our business. And then several years later, we were able to go with a fully open competitive tender for energy. We have the same trajectory as far as our highway procurement and construction is concerned. We have had the last 14 years where we have this packaged arrangement where we have financing, construction, engineering, blah, etc., with one provider. This step is a graduation, and it's a step of a maturity of Jamaica's economy and the way we can go about things, that we can procure this and finance it ourselves. And the next step, we already started to work on, I can show you the correspondence from September of last year, is a fully open competitive system.
All right, hold on. Couple questions.
Sorry, go ahead.
A couple questions. First of all, given your pithy and folksy proverbs, I don't remember hearing you quoting Jamaican proverbs before, but given your folksy proverbs that you're quoting in this context, was there then a concern that choosing any other option would... Whoops, hold on. Gremlins in your phone line.
Right, go ahead. Okay. Are you hearing me? Hello?
No, it sounds like your phone take up water or something. Talk again, let me hear. Okay, hold on, Dr. Clarke. We're gonna, my producer is gonna try to call you back or get you back, because all of a sudden gremlins are talking to us instead of you. So we're talking to the Finance Minister, Dr. Nigel Clarke. I tell you what, we're just about at the break, so let me just take the break, do a little bit of business, sort out his phone line, and come back with the Finance Minister. Stay tuned, soon come. With you, we're talking with the Finance Minister, Nigel Clarke, and I hope the gremlins have exited his phone. Dr. Clarke?
Hi, Dionne.
Okay. Hearing you better than ever. Thank you so much. Yeah, man, much better. All right, so I know I'm going to run out of time soon, so let me go to a couple of quick questions. First of all, you have said that it wasn't the Chinese who either pressured or requested Jamaica to decide on the option that you went with. However, given the proverbs you're quoting about go water how much time and look whatever how much time, was there an actual concern, though, that any other option would have jeopardized any future development projects?
So the proverb I quote is that you never forget people that help you today as you may need them tomorrow. Okay, so the English proverb is don't burn bridges. It would have been absolutely bad faith, Dionne, and we don't need anybody to tell us that. It would be absolutely bad faith to go down the wicket, right, from 2017, working diligently for a number of years, and now 3 or 4 years later, after persons or entities, the government of China through their companies have made the investments on a particular understanding to change that, without notice. It would have been bad faith, and it would put Jamaica in a bad position.
Okay, so that's a yes. That's a yes.
No. Yes.
It's not a yes. The question was there concern then that taking any other route would have jeopardized future projects or future collaborations?
Yes, there's a concern that the cost, that taking other routes would spoil Jamaica's name internationally.
Okay.
Right? This is a government-to-government arrangement.
Understood.
Remember that.
Understood.
Right? Not a government or private. It's a government arrangement.
All right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just that I have some questions. I want to make sure I don't run out of time.
Go ahead.
One of the questions that has been raised by the opposition leader is a legal question. He's saying that the order that had been brought to Parliament was bad on its face because it speaks to exemption from the Procurement Act on the basis of a number of criteria, none of which had been met by this particular project because it hadn't been declared a national development project.
I think the Attorney General dealt with him properly on that. Absolute nonsense. The PPA allows for national development projects to be exempted. The resolution calls for Parliament to make this a national development project. We didn't separate the two, and the Attorney General responded to him on that point. That's red herring, not relevant.
Well, a legitimate question can be answered without being called a red herring, Dr. Clarke.
Okay.
And having said that, why was there the need to exempt, though, from the Act, given that the Public Procurement Act speaks to sole sourcing, what is called in the Act single source procurement from a specific supplier or specific approved unregistered supplier pursuant to an invitation to bid without a competitive procurement process. So you could have used the framework of the Act and gone sole source. Why not?
No, okay. The reason for that, Dionne, is that remember that the modality in which this was originally conceived was a government-to-government modality, which completely is, the PPA does not apply to those government-to-government modalities.
But it's no longer in that bracket because you've decoupled it from the financing. So why could other arrangements? Because you're already now saying in good faith, even though it's no longer this government-to-government project, we are still going to go ahead and award the contract to you. But why could there not have been these other arrangements, seeing that we're now talking about a different source of funding, taxpayers' money, and the public would be concerned? So why could that not have been adjusted as well?
I hear the thing about taxpayers' money. All of the projects that we've done with China is taxpayers' money. The fact that it's being financed by China Exim Bank, the taxpayers still have to pay it back. So all of them are taxpayers' money. This is no different in terms of who ultimately pays for it. The financing just provides, a time difference for when the taxpayers pay for it, but it's all paid for by taxpayers. What we have done here,
except with different kind of arrangements under different speaks to different modalities, different ways in which oversight is conducted with all of the money coming out of Jamaica. It's a different situation. Hence my question.
Yeah. So what we have done is to keep the framework consistent with what it would have been if we went through with the original intent.
But why? Right? You've already made the concession of saying we are... Remember, because that's a big deal, Even though we've decoupled the financing, out of good faith, we are still awarding you the contract. However, given that there has been this difference, we are now going to put it in this framework. Why? Why not? Why is that a problem?
Because, Dionne, we have gone down the wicket, meaning bill of quantities. We have already been prepared, preliminary construction costs, etc. If we did not continue on the path that is consistent with how we have previously arranged these things, we would have to back up. Now, in the case of completely doing it over, we have to back up 4 years. In the case of going through some other PPA arrangement, maybe we'd have to back up a year or so. But the point is that it would have interrupted the flow. But let me get to the real issue, Dionne, which you...
All right, let me just ask the last question. Let me just ask my last question on that point before you say you get to the real issue. Is it not true? Is it not true that by deciding to fund ourselves rather than go the route of a loan, there would be less financial benefit to the Chinese as a result of the fact that we're no longer borrowing from them? Wouldn't that be correct?
Let me put it this way. I think that it is ultimately better for us.
No, man, I don't think anybody is arguing with that, I'm making a different point. I'm saying that you've already been willing to modify the process to their disadvantage by deciding that we are funding it ourselves, which, as you say, is better for Jamaica. Sure, I don't think there are many people who would argue with that. But I'm saying, having gone that step, why not the next step?
Why it is better for Jamaica? It's better for Jamaica because when we...
that is a red herring. That is a red herring,
You don't have to disagree with the argument by using the word red herring, Dionne.
You are, though, taking me down a route. That is not the question I've asked.
It is important that it's understood. When we finance it ourselves, we disperse the money right here in Kingston. Okay? When we borrow, the money is dispersed in Beijing. Okay? So when we get more out of it, meaning the ancillary benefits, what they have to buy, what they have to do, we get more of the economic activity right here in Jamaica.
No, man, you're answering a question I have not asked. I am not disagreeing.
Well,
that seems...
not just for you. I'm here for your listeners as well.
But trust me, my listeners prefer when my guests actually answer the questions that I ask.
Ask your question, Dionne. I'm right
Okay,
here for you.
So you're making the point that Jamaica benefits more when we pay for it ourselves as opposed to taking a loan. And that seems obvious on its face. But I'm saying that change, which is a fundamental change, because you made a big deal out of it when you made the announcement, right? Because it's a big thing.
It's a graduation.
It's a big thing. So having made that much of a significant change to the process, surely you had the capital to go a step further and say, You are still getting the contract. However, we now want it executed under this framework. And that's the answer I'm not getting from you.
Okay, so here's how we've used our capital. We have said to the Czechs, we've said to the Chinese government, I'm saying it to you, we have said it openly, that this is it with that kind of arrangement, as long as Jamaica continues to do well. The next time around, we are going with an open tender process, and we are working on that from now. We have engaged our multilateral partners, the World Bank, the IFC, and we are developing for the phases beyond Montego Bay, fully open, competitive, transparent from the outset. And that is how we have been able to muster that capital, because we have honored what we need to honor, and we are taking our time and graduating from the modality that Jamaica has been dependent on over the past 14 years. And I think that is good news. But we are graduating.
But why the next project and not this project?
Because we are 3 or 4 years into this, Dionne. Right? If you go back and you Google Montego Bay, you'll see all of the updates and announcements over the last 4 years. This is not something that we started yesterday. We started this in 2017.
Tell me something.
There's been considerable work that has been done, considerable money that has been spent, moving along a path with a government partner, not an individual partner, with a government partner. And it is essential as a good international corporate citizen to operate in good faith, even as Jamaica changes gear and moves in a more independent direction, where we can canvass the best, from anywhere in the world, including the Chinese, to come in an open tender process in Jamaica. But as far as what is this,
Sorry, I need to follow up on something you said very quickly, because you made the point a couple of times that the decision for Jamaica to fund the project was made late in the day. Did that not involve changes that would have entailed some kind of delay?
Sorry, go ahead.
The decision to move from the original funding model to Jamaica funding it, would that not have involved?
No, not that in itself. I would say to you that COVID involved a delay, because originally in the budget that was tabled in for the last fiscal year, the Montego Bay bypass was in it. And when I had to redo the budget, the $1.8 billion to start the land acquisition and so on, when I had to redo the budget in April of 2020, we had to cut the amounts considerably. And the people in Montego Bay took to the streets. Okay, the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, we had placards on the street how we could be delaying Montego Bay bypass. So it has not, the change in Jamaican financing did not and has not delayed the project. What definitely delayed it.
All right, I think there's something else you had said you wanted to say. I have to go for news, because this is Radio Jamaica, so if you would like to come back for 5 minutes afterwards, I'll let you complete your point. But I do have to go for news.
Give me an idea of,
My producer will talk to you right now. I have to go to news right now. Finance Minister Dr Nigel Clarke. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for staying with us. We continue with you on Beyond the Headlines. Boyd, come in like say I must clear the decks and clear the program every time the Finance Minister comes on.
Wow.
So
I would say, Dionne, by the size of your commercial break, it looks like the economic recovery is well underway.
This is a point at which people say that is beyond my pay grade to respond. So I direct you to my CEO, who you can talk to about that.
Things are good.
Well, cross fingers, let's hope so. We need media. All right, so I know I interrupted you a couple of times. I do have 2 final questions, but there was a point you were trying to make. I wanted to allow you to make it.
Yes, I'll make it really quickly. The opposition is well acquainted with the circumstances under which decisions like these have to be made. I reminded you of the energy procurement on more than one occasion that had to be sole source, wrapped completely, financing everything. In those days, you didn't have, the rule that you have to come to Parliament, but it had to be done on more than one occasion. I'll also remind you, Dionne, and listeners, of in 2012, when Minister Omar Davies, in a prior dispensation, slightly different circumstances, came with a package deal. He wanted to do North-South Highway with the Chinese. He wanted to do Gordon Key with the Chinese. He wanted to do Fort Augusta with the Chinese. And he came out and said he's bypassing everything. The laws didn't allow for it at the time. And he set up an independent panel who was going to oversee the contract with some eminent Jamaicans. He actually took the procurement authorities to court. This is the minister in the last PNP government. Took the Contractor General to court and was not even satisfied with the decision of Justice Lennox Campbell. Wanted to go to the full court for another review because he wanted to go and sole source $600 million of projects with the same China Harbor Engineering Company. Right? Now, I say that to say that they're well acquainted with the exigencies and the reasons sometimes that these things become necessary. At that point in time, the law did not permit it in the way Dr. Davies wanted to go. And under their administration, the new Procurement Act in 2015 allowed for national development projects to be exempted from the Public Procurement Act when they were in office. So they are well aware of what the reasons are when you have to make executive decisions from a set of very limited choices. You have people on the ground who have already demonstrated, right? When I had to move the MoBay project from the budget last year, we got demonstrations in the parish of St. James, which is, I'll remind you, an economic mecca of Jamaica. So memories can be short in Jamaica, but I just want to remind Jamaicans of that.
Okay, let me say two things.
That experience that we are here.
Yeah, let me say two things. You're speaking there.
Circumstances are very, very different.
Yeah.
Circumstances are different, but I just want to connect a few dots.
Yeah,
and not,
You're speaking about when Dr. Davies objected to the Contractor General wanting to monitor the oversight panel that he had set up, and he sought leave to apply for judicial review, and also a declaration that the Contractor General did not have that authority. Let me just say, though, because something that politicians do, and you, of course, are a politician, when you all point back and you say, nobody no remember that, and people have short memories, and I think what you all forget is that there had been at the time a tremendous outcry and criticism of the actions in that case. Which is the point I'm making. You're saying something has happened in the past. I'm saying, and when that particular thing happened, there was also an outcry. Civil society was also concerned. Concerns were also raised.
So I am bringing that fact to the fore, not to use it to justify, because this is justified on its own basis in that the law allows for it now. I am using it to make the point that the opposition is well aware of the practical, necessities and the practical options that are in the place of a government that needs to respond to people and to citizens.
Well, having said that, where's the oversight for this project going to come from? One of the things that the opposition was saying is why not include it in the order in the same way that I saw you include the arrangements in terms of local labor on the project and the rates to be paid, JIC rates and so on. So they were saying why not include the oversight arrangements in the order? Okay.
So value for money is a legitimate question and legitimate topic of conversation. And how we plan to address that is consistent with how value for money is addressed under the South Coast Highway project, right? Where that's a government-to-government project with the government of China, which is outside of the procurement process. It's not open to multiple bidders, but a price has to be established, right? Or had to be established. And Jamaica has done that now at least 3 times. And what happens is that there is a transparent contract negotiation process that is set up. It is multi-sector or multi-ministry, where you have technocrats, you have a chief negotiator who is, and this is all written down in manuals, okay, who is supplemented by international consultants, in this case, Stanley Incorporated, a multinational consulting engineering firm, and also by a private sector representative who is from that field, and he sits on the contracting negotiating team along with technocrats from the Ministry of Finance and other ministries. And I believe somebody from the Attorney General's chambers as well.
You're saying that is going to happen in this case?
And that has happened in previous cases.
Understood, but in this case?
In this case, it's going to happen, yes.
Okay, and we will be able to find out who are the members of this oversight committee?
No, it's not an oversight committee. It's a contract negotiating committee will negotiate. The contract negotiating process is written down in advance. How things are escalated, what to do in terms of if there's disagreement, the information that they'll be working with, the bill of quantities, the estimates from quantity surveyors. They'll have pricing for previous contracts or previous works or elements of it that they can refer to. And it's all written out in a multi-page manual before. And the reason why it's available is that this is what has been used in negotiations on similar arrangements where we are talking to one party, i.e. the previous, China Harbor arrangement, such as the South Coast Highway. And this is a process where it's documented, and and the minutes and the notices, the minutes of the process are recorded. By recorded, I mean written down and available for inspection. And even after that contract negotiation process is completed, first of all, they're under, you have the managing director, I believe, of either NWA or NROC, one of the two or both. One of the two probably. And here I'm outside of my portfolio here, but I've been briefed for the call.
Where's the oversight, though? Having explained that, who is going to do the oversight?
When you say when you say oversight, I'm giving you
as the project goes along, because you're making the distinction that this isn't an oversight committee. You say it's a contract committee that's going to be dealing with the negotiating process. So I'm saying after all of that has been completed and the project is proceeding.
The oversight of the project would be no different to how existing projects, construction projects, have oversight. So South Coast Highway is happening right now.
Okay.
And that receives oversight from the government agencies that are responsible.
Okay.
And that would be the same with the Montego Bay bypass.
A listener is asking if we'll be able to see the contract, this contract.
Contracts that we have with, international parties for this kind of work. I don't, that's something I would have to defer on. Dionne, that's not something I have an answer to, but I would say to you that I hope that you can understand what I'm saying by saying that this contract negotiation and contracting process is not different to the process that was on the South Coast Highway or to the previous processes under multiple administrations during the time that we have been contracting with China for construction projects.
All right,
Jamaica's learned an incredible amount over that period of time, which is this time around why we have the orders in place and we consulted with the unions before we, put those orders in place, and with the NWU. I think you saw the NWU come out and, in reference to that part of it, make their comment of support, because we've learned a lot over time, and the oversight process will be similar, where the government agencies that are responsible for this area of public life will oversee the contractor in this case, which is China Harbor Engineer.
All right. So you used an interesting phrase a little earlier on. You said that the parties are being informed that going forward, you're going to be going competitive tender, open competitive tender, and you use the phrase specifically so that everything can be transparent from the outset. So you said earlier that one of the reasons that you didn't go under the Public Procurement Act sole sourcing route for this project is that it would have resulted in delays. You said of at least a year, correct?
Yeah, I'm giving you an estimate there.
Right,
yes,
right, understood. Yeah. But given the importance of the transparency issue, might it not have been worth it to suck up the delay and go the open competitive tender route?
Yeah, so, certainly on the executive side of government, you have to make decisions from options and with competing priorities. There is a competing priority, Dionne, of the urgency of the situation in St. James during COVID. It takes an inordinately long time to get across Montego Bay. We promised the Jamaican people, right, prior to September 2020, that we're going to be focusing on economic recovery. And we're going to try to recover better and stronger than we were before. A part of that is making sure that the tourism product is deeper and that we improve the productivity of capital and labor in the economy. And there's no better way to do that and to ensure that goods and people can traverse Jamaica and sections of Jamaica much faster than before. There's an urgency to the situation. It has been delayed over a long period of time. The people of the people of St. James went up in arms, and they are the ones who have been, calling and WhatsApping. You guys continue, go ahead, don't give up, right? Because St. James is not divided on this issue. St. James, which is the economic mecca of Jamaica, from which we derive tremendous amounts of revenue, they are at one.
Well, I mean, I lived in Montego Bay for 10. I lived in Montego Bay for 10 years. I go back there every now and then. Anyone who has been in Montego Bay traffic knows that the bypass is needed, the perimeter road is needed. So I don't think you're going to get anybody who says we don't need roads. But having said that, isn't also a consideration which you haven't put on the table there, a political one? You want to get this done before the next election, not true?
Well, Dionne, we are put in to do our job. Okay, we work for the Jamaican people, and we are true to the commitments that we make.
So that's a yes. That's a yes. So the delays don't factor into the political side of things here. We've had delays there. When delays are necessary, we have them. We had to delay last year. We came out in March 2020 with this project on the capital books. But a month later, I had to go to Parliament and take it off, even though the people in Montego Bay protested. Go back and look, go Google it, go see the president with a media person, right? See the media person, Janet Silvera. Go see her with her placard when we had to take it off the books. So we are not, we are not one-dimensional. We do what is in the best interest of Jamaica. When we had to delay it, we delayed it. And we got a flack from the people of Montego Bay. Okay? And having delayed it by... But you did so at the time because you thought it was necessary.
No, because we had no choice. We had no choice.
Whereas now you do.
We're looking at an $80 billion hole. This was 1.8, and we had to put some other things before it, so we delayed it. But we are faithful to the commitment that we made that we're going to focus on economic recovery. We are, economic recovery is critical at this time. Jobs and economic activity. We have the South Coast Highway going. We want to make sure that as soon as that is finished, this one takes its place, right? South Coast should be finished next year, 2022. Next year, we'll have, South Coast and Montego Bay going at the same time. And then South Coast is done. We can ramp up the resources on the Montego Bay project and, be in a position where that gets done. It's not it's a big project. There's going to be a 270-meter bridge. 270-meter when I went to school was nearly 1,000 feet. A 1,000-foot bridge across the Montego Bay River, the Montego River. All right, it's a huge bridge. I don't know which other bridge we have that's 1,000 feet long. It's a big project, and it's going to take multiple years to get done. And we have to get it done now, or else the expansion that Minister Bartlett is talking about in the tourism product in Montego Bay, and the expansion in other areas, they're going to be stymied.
Okay. I'm being told that the Prime Minister actually said in the House Tuesday that all the documents pertaining to the contract will be made public.
Well, there you go. I was not in Parliament on Tuesday. As I said, you have to defer. Well, defer to the Prime Minister, the leader of government, and so you take him at his word.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just about out of time. Ran over time, but we appreciate your time, Mr. Finance Minister. Thank you as always. We have plenty more things to talk about, but can't do everything in one program.
Plenty more things to talk about. But I fear, Dionne, I make myself available. The nature of democratic politics is, yes, the opposition is going to take opportunity, where there may be perceived deficiencies and hammer on the deficiencies. And, we have to be ready to account for the reason for the decisions, recognizing the drawbacks, but, presenting to Jamaican people as a context in which it's occurred and a context of limited options.
Yeah, but
as practical people who have multiple, multiple objectives, and we have competing priorities. and we make the best decision from the options available in the context in which it occurs.
Yeah, but let me just say this, because this is something...
Sure, yes.
No, I was just going to say something that members of your administration have, and to be fair, others have consistently done, which is, I think, insulting to the people of Jamaica, is to narrow all objections and put them in the opposition's lap. The reality is that there are questions coming from outside Parliament, Mr. Finance Minister, from people who are not in the PNP and not in the opposition.
I accept that. And the point I'm making is it is necessary to respond and to give an account for the what led to the decision, what the background is, what the context is, what the options are. And I'm just saying to you, that's why I make myself available, because I believe that the democratic system requires that.
We always appreciate it. But they're going to hold me account if I don't take the break and earn some more money. So.
Yeah, but boy, I love it.
Remember, CEO, that conversation is with the CEO. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
Okay, Dionne. Take care.
All right, you too. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke. Stay tuned. All right, so as you can see, I kind of push up the program, but, as a finance minister, we had stuff to talk about, questions to ask. So when we come back, Earl Moxham will be joining us if he hasn't gone to bed to talk about this issue of the divide vote and the controversy and the debate on it in Parliament yesterday. Stay tuned. Soon come.